Very much. 6:31 this morning. If you're a person of faith, it's almost a certainty that at some point in the last 2 years, you've worshiped from someplace other than your usual congregation.
Yeah, the pandemic forced houses of worship across the world to shut their doors. Many have only just fully reopened in the last few months. But what is the long-term impact of all these at-home worship sessions? I went 360 to find out.
The need for a building in which to worship is universal.
A mosque is a part of the Muslims' life. They cannot keep away from the mosque.
Imam Dr. Abdelhamid Al-Jazawi leads the Islamic Center of Johnson County, a mosque that was basically closed to people for almost 2 years during the pandemic. Muslims are called to pray 5 times a day.
It's highly recommended to do it at the mosque. You can do it at your work, you can do it at your home. We as Muslims have flexibility in our religion.
But the Imam remembers a night when the building was closed, and he got a lesson in just how much it means to people.
The first night of Ramadan, I see a family came with their mats, pray outside in the parking lot. I was crying at this moment.
What do you see as the importance of a physical building like this to be able to gather and worship?
It's sacred space. It's a place designated for divine purposes. It's not just coming into the building, but having the entire experience of the Catholic Mass, its rituals, its sounds, its smells. You just don't get in some other type of environment.
In fact, people on your road, guess what they are? Broken. I didn't say broke, I said broken.
That other environment, for so many people of faith, looks a lot like this: a screen and a couch. April Shields has gone to church her whole life.
I was a little girl with the frilly socks and the lace and the Easter speeches.
She's now a member of United Believers Community Church in Kansas City. But this church lifer says she's staying home on Sunday mornings now.
This is my sanctuary. This is the place where I have peace, and I can come and no one's going to disrupt my peace while I'm here. I've really learned during this entire thing that self-care is really, really important. And it's not just going to get your nails done or your hair done. It's about taking the time to rest.
Virtual church, not a term that many people were familiar with prior to the pandemic, but obviously that's no longer the case. Take, for example, St. Andrew's Episcopal, where I'm standing this morning here in Kansas City. They, like so many other churches here in KC and really all over the world, have made significant strides and changes in the way their presentation is done for people at home.
If a church doesn't do that, I think it's going to miss out on a significant number of people who aren't coming back in person or may never start going in person because it just wasn't a part of their experience.
Adam Hamilton is the lead pastor for Church of the Resurrection. It's one of the largest United Methodist congregations in the world. Thousands watch their services online. But he says even at a time when church attendance is declining, online can't be the only offering.
And the church is the people. And, we used to do this. I never can remember how it did it. Here's the church, here's the steeple. Yeah, right. And then see all the people. And I think it's about community. They're hospitals and they're healing centers and they're places of love and community and warmth. And if a church stops doing those things and stops sending its people out to serve, it's going to die.
Rabbi Stephanie Kramer of Congregation B'nai Yehuda took that thought one step further. Churches, mosques, and synagogues have to be aware of what people need from their worship services, no matter where they are, and be ready to provide it.
When film got cheap enough that people were able to start taking pictures on their own, or even when you think about digital pictures, there was a real worry of whether paintings would continue. And yet paintings have continued, right? They're even more unique, they're even more special. You just told me how much you love going to services on Sunday morning at your church, but I bet just as much as you love doing that, you get something out of prayer when it's just you, when it's the personal prayer, when it's out in nature, right? It's feeding different pieces of our soul that we need fed in really different and unique ways.
So the future could look like this. This year, Numa Community Church began meeting in Kansas City. Their members meet together in a rented space 2 Sundays a month. But on other Sundays, they gather in assigned small groups in people's homes.
You get really lost in a crowd of 1,000 people, but in a group of 100 or so, you really get to know and form relationships.
Pastor Joe Ratterman told me right now there are no plans to open their own building. The goal was to offer something different, because moving forward, people of faith need to be open-minded. about what's possible.
I think an emphasis on less centralized gathering and more of an emphasis on smaller expressions of church. I love what the pandemic did for the church. I love that it caused us to ask the big questions about why we do what we do and what's most effective at reaching people.
So the answer, obviously not clear just yet. The question is a big one, though, for every member of a faith community. As part of the research into this, we found polls that said about 4 out of 5 people say their life is basically back to normal right now, but only 2 in 3 regular churchgoers have gone back to church full time. So it's just interesting what this is going to be in the future. Later today, I'm going to record a special episode of my Faith in KC podcast, joined by members of the Religion in Kansas Project from the University of Kansas to approach this from the academic perspective. So you'll be able to find that online later on today.
Fascinating. I mean,
great conversations.
The pandemic is probably maybe the biggest disruption in decades or centuries of tradition for so many people.
And I was so thankful for April for sharing her story. She got emotional with me during her conversation about, listen, church used to be my place. It's still my place, but now it's going to be right here. And take some of the pressure of, for lack of a better word, performing at church off whenever you go on a Sunday morning and just being me on my couch. It was a pretty great
She's
conversation.
not the only person that feels that.
Absolutely
right?
not. No.
Wow.
So if you've got a thought about this story or a topic you'd like us to go 360 on, please email us. The website is, or the email address is 360@kshb.com, and follow KSHB 41 on social media to join that conversation as well.